Well, good afternoon. It was a good off week for us. We were able to get 3 workouts in, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we were able to lift 3 times, which was good. We typically lift twice a week. We were able to lift 3 times a week with the older guys. And then gave them the weekend off, which was much needed to get away from football, try to refresh. And we're back here this afternoon for a team meeting at 3 o'clock. Have our normal Monday with just being in helmets really on Monday, and take our first real hard look at Robert Morris and have a normal week. I know the guys will be excited to come back, and it starts the run of 9 straight. So we just need to win today and end up with a great game plan against a good Robert Morris team. So we'll open it up for questions.
Chris, you know anything you can tell us about what Nick's status is?
Well, the surgery was a success from what we understand, and he's going to begin jogging this week, and we're optimistic that he's going to play at some point. Now, he's not going to play this week, but at some point in the future, whether that is 2 weeks, whether that's 4 weeks, we're at least optimistic, and each week, each day, we'll find out a little bit more on how he can do after running and stuff.
You know what the injury was?
It was a meniscus. Yep.
Mentally, I mean, I know he's a tough kid, but it's a couple of blows back to back.
Absolutely, and he's a strong kid, and he's got great friends, and he's got great family to lean on, and but that's hard. And when you had it taken away from you the first time, and then not sure if it's taken away from you the second time, boy, he's a resilient kid, and that's why I know that he's going to attack this rehab in plans and hopes on playing.
Is there some relief in the sense that it wasn't season-ending for you?
Well, the biggest thing, we were hoping that it was an ACL and those things, and it wasn't. And it was obviously touch and go the first 3 or 4 days, where we really didn't know a whole lot until they were able to get in there. And they were able to get in there and fix it. And we believe that he can possibly have an opportunity to play. We're hopeful.
Partially?
Mm-hmm. Partially torn, I believe.
Well, what's more left?
Yeah, Dan's a good football player, a really good football player, and he proved that a couple weeks ago. He doesn't have the experience, obviously, that Nick does, but long term, we need everybody. We need more guys, and so whether or not that's Dan sliding over and Nick playing the nickel Will and Dan playing the nickel Mike, or Nick playing some defensive end, I mean, that's kind of the process we were hoping for during fall camp, because we feel pretty strongly about Dan. So obviously another big week for Dan to get a bunch of reps and continue to get better.
What do you know about Robert Morris?
Well, no, defensively they really haven't. We went back and looked at the 2012 game, because head coach was the defensive coordinator then. He's been there a long time, and they play really good defense, and it's a unique system. It's a lot of 3-down stuff and a lot of stunts and blitzes. And he's been in here. A number of his coaches have been in the Fargo Dome, because they were here in 2010, obviously here in 2012. So the environment, I don't think will be a big deal for them, as far as they'll be able to explain it to the players, even if they weren't here, that what they're in for. So, but I know this: they're playing really good defense. They have excellent special teams. They were able to move the ball last week well against VMI. Youngstown did a nice job against them on defense, but Youngstown struggled. It was 13-0 in the fourth quarter, and then they had a good win over Dayton. So they have the right formula. They play really good special teams. They play really good defense. And they want to run the football.
Update the other injured guys, Dimitri, Brock, where do they stand at?
I asked Bobby that before I came over here, and he's going to run all those guys today. And we're hopeful that Dimitri can play. We're hopeful Brock can play. We're hopeful that Dallas can play, so on and so forth. But we'll know probably more after the next couple days and see if those kids can run, because all those guys were running. They didn't practice last week, but the last time that we saw those guys was Thursday. Obviously, they've been in treatments and stuff throughout the weekend, but today will be a big day.
You imagine playing 8-9 offensive linemen again? This is maybe their last dry run before you're ready for conference play for the 5 you want?
Well, we hope we play a bunch of guys. The couple guys really jumped out at me last week. Cordell Volson and Carson Schoening and even Kubis have taken most of those reps. We didn't practice Colin Connor or Kunert last week, so those guys got a bunch of reps and are continuing to move forward, and they're going to play a lot this weekend. And so that getting us ready for Valley play. It's still a non-conference game for us that is really important for us to be able to win the football game, but it's also really important for us to get Jabril Cox more reps, get some of these other guys a lot more quality reps, whether it's Blake Williams or Dom Davis or Josh Hayes and James Hendricks, all those guys that are going to be maybe not full-time stars for us, but going to play a lot for us in the conference.
I think you're asked this every year about this time. Your thoughts on the other teams in the conference?
It's really strong. Obviously, that was a big win by USD, and I was able to just look at a little bit of it, and I thought they did a really good job up front and controlled the line of scrimmage. And you guys know they have really good skill kids at USD. I think that quarterback's a really, really special player. And then obviously in this league, once we get to that, it's going to be week in and week out. Everybody can beat everybody. So it's another good league. I was hoping Indiana State would get a win. I thought they had a chance. I understand that had a field goal blocked, but had a chance to win. That had been a great win against a FBS opponent.
Chris, this is different in the past with playing and then going into conference play. Is that just what you want to do going into Valley play?
Well, you always like to have your bye after playing 3 games and then take the bye before you get to conference play. That's ideal. Obviously, that in the day of scheduling for us and for what Matt and Jeremy have to do, that's hard to do. And so this was the next best scenario of playing 2 games with a really long road trip, playing the Pacific time zone, to then have the bye, then to come back and at least play home and then have your home opener or have your conference home opener. So not ideal, but obviously that's what we're dealt. So we have to gain some momentum with some young players this week in practice, and then hopefully on Saturday gain some momentum with those guys, and then it leads into the conference play.
How important is that just break from football over the weekend to have that time to get away for the guys?
I think it's really important for the players. It's really important for the coaches. You know, we don't take any weekends off from end of July, really, all the way up until whenever your bye week is. And so just to get away and maybe watch football on your own Saturday, be around with some friends. I know a lot of guys traveled and went home for the weekend to see their family they probably haven't seen since the end of July. I think that's just good to get away from it. It's good for us as coaches to get away. You know, we didn't come in on Saturday. We were able to be home with our families. I think that's important because it's a long grind from here on out, and we're just really in the middle of September.
Just kind of where you would see your team outside of the injuries in terms of the progression from week 1 to week 2, kind of where you.
Yeah, it was good from week 1 to week 2. I thought we improved in a number of areas. Obviously, having the injuries has really propelled some guys a little bit quicker. The Dan Marlettes and Luke Bacon's faster maybe than we anticipated, but we knew they were going to play those first 3 games. They just got full speed ahead on a couple of those guys with the injuries. But that's why this week is still so important for us. We're still really evaluating some guys. We're still evaluating a lot of special team situations that we need to continue to improve upon. Who can be a guy on kickoff? Who can be a guy on punt defense or kickoff return from a blocking standpoint that, or maybe a younger player that we worked a bunch on special teams last week in the open week. We still have to find more guys. We can't have Chris Board or Levi or Nick or Trey or Jalen be on everything. And so we need to continue to get better on special teams, and that's the one we'll focus on again this week.
Does this non-conference have a different feel? Because last year you had the FBS game, 2 highly nationally ranked teams. This year you're
Yeah, the FBS game is the big thing. You know, not having that FBS game, we always try to get it, but I also know that once I knew this one wasn't going to be a year we were going to have one because we were on the road at Eastern Washington. So with it being an 11-game schedule, we're always going to play 6 games at home. That's so important to our fans and something that I don't think will ever change. So I knew we weren't going to have that FBS, but obviously Eastern Washington is a pretty good football team. I think that'll play out throughout the season. They had a good win on Saturday, but it's just the different style. I think this style of play this week will help us because Robert Morris is totally opposite of Eastern Washington. Robert Morris wants to run the football. They're going to get into more what we would call conventional formations like we do with a tight end, a fullback. Defensively, they're going to be a 3-down front, which we're seeing more and more in our league, so that'll help us prepare for our league as well. So there's some good things about playing this game at this time with Robert Morris.
Chris, your receiver depth, is this a game too? You want to see something there that now they've been in here long enough to flash something?
Yeah. Once again, it depends on health of a couple of guys. You know, with Dimitri and Dallas, I mean, those are two guys that are depth guys, but guys that have contributed. I wish those guys could play, and maybe they still can, so that it doesn't have to be Shep and RJ all the time. But big week for Dez and Sean Engel especially. Those two guys that I think have a chance to break out, so to speak, and they have to be able to make plays when you have the opportunity. But you know, also as you guys saw last week, it doesn't always have to be wide receivers. You know, with our tight ends, you know, with Nate Jensen, I obviously getting 2 more weeks with Jeff Ilias is going to help Jeff a bunch. You know, we hope to have Brock Robbins back. We don't know about Brock. That would be another guy to get out of the backfield as a fullback or tight end. So it's not necessarily always the wide receiver position. It's just our passing game in general. And are we going to be in a little bit more 2 tight end sets and flex Jeff out? You know, those are things that we're still working on based on Jeff's health and his availability.
You able to get a sense of where the whole division stands right now? There seems to, at least in my opinion, maybe a clear line about 7 teams that maybe have separated themselves from everybody else even early on.
The division or the conference? Yeah, I guess I haven't paid as much attention to it as probably you have. I watched the Valley. I couldn't tell you anybody's record in the CAA or Big Sky. I know the games that we've won against the Big Sky, but I wouldn't tell you anybody's record. I don't know. Is Sam Houston undefeated? I don't know any of those things other than the Valley, because that's kind of what our focus is you know, that's why playing Robert Morris, they just played Youngstown, so it's good to have somebody to compare it to, because the other game is Dayton and the other game is VMI. Those are tough games to compare to. When you compare them against Youngstown, now you see how the Valley stacks up. And as we know that I think there's a Valley game this week, so it all starts this week.